I first saw the boy on a quiet winter afternoon, the kind where the wind felt slow and tired as it moved across the reedy river. I came to that river whenever the weight of my world grew too heavy. People in Greenville feared me, respected me, whispered my name like it came with consequences. Maybe it did. But here at the river, I could pretend I was just a man sitting on a bench watching water drift past. I never expected anyone to approach me here, especially not a kid. I felt someone watching me long before I saw him. My instincts never failed me. Years of living the way I live sharpened my senses until danger had a scent of its own. But this time the feeling was different, lighter, nervous, like a small heartbeat pressing against the air. When I finally turned my head, I saw him. A thin boy standing just far enough away to run if he needed to. He looked about 9, maybe younger. His clothes were clean, but worn. His shoes were stitched in places where the fabric had given up. His hair needed a trim. But his eyes held something rare, something strong, something too old for a boy that size. He held out a small blue watch in his shaking hand. For a moment, I didn't move. I had been offered deals, threats, bribes, and weapons, but never a child's watch. "Sir," he said, and the word carried a weight no child should ever have to use. I looked at the watch, saw the scratches, the faded edges, the cheap band warmed by his skin. It was clearly his most precious thing. Something held close. Something loved. "This is my Christmas watch," he said. His voice cracked at the end. I didn't speak. I only watched him, watched the way he tried to stand tall even though fear trembled through him. He took a small breath that almost didn't make it out of his chest. "It keeps perfect time," he said. "Never stops, never slows down." His hand stretched farther toward me, like offering it quickly would make it hurt less. I finally asked the question that had been burning in my mind. "What's your name?" "Emer," he answered softly. His chin lifted with a courage that hit me harder than any threat ever had. I reached out and took the watch from his hand. It was so light. Too light to carry the amount of hope he placed in it. The moment it left his palm, his eyes flickered with something like pain, as if giving it away took something out of him he could never replace. "What do you want, Emer?" I asked. He swallowed, hard, his hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. "I want you to help my mama." His voice wasn't loud. It didn't shake this time. It came out steady, full of the kind of determination that only comes from desperation. "There's a man," Emer continued. "He comes every week. He says we owe money. My mama tries. She really tries. But we don't have enough. He says we're going to lose our home." His eyes filled, but he didn't cry. I could tell he had practiced not crying. "He scares her," he whispered. "She cries after he leaves. She thinks I don't hear, but I do. Our walls are thin." The river moved behind us, a soft sound that didn't belong in a conversation like this. He took a step closer, breaking his own safety line. "So I want to give you this," he said, motioning toward the watch now resting in my hand. "It's the best thing I have, and if you take it, maybe you'll help her." I stared at the kid. 9 years old and standing in front of a man people crossed the street to avoid, offering a plastic watch as payment for saving his mother. The bravery of that moment cracked something in me I didn't know could still break. "Do you understand what you're asking me to do?" I asked him. Emer nodded. "I'm asking you to make the bad man go away so my mama can stop crying." Simple words, honest words, words heavier than any deal I'd made in my life. I closed my fingers around the watch. "Do you trust me?" I asked. His answer came without hesitation. "Yes." That yes settled in my chest like a weight and a promise at the same time. "Go home," I told him. My voice sounded different to my own ears. "Don't tell your mother where you've been, and don't look back." He didn't move at first, maybe unsure if he had succeeded. Then he turned and walked away, shoulders stiff, back straight, fighting every instinct telling him to look behind him. He didn't look back, and as the river carried light across its surface, I stared at the small blue watch in my hand and realized something I never expected. This boy had changed everything. When Emer walked away that evening, something stayed behind with me. Not the watch. That was in my pocket. What stayed was the weight of his trust, heavy, real, uncomfortable in a way nothing else ever was. I had built an entire life on people fearing me, obeying me, staying out of my way. But that boy had walked straight toward me with shaking hands and a heart full of desperation, offering the only thing he owned. I sat on the bench for another minute before finally pulling out my phone. There were only 12 people in the world who had this number. I called one of them. "I need information," I said. "Greenville area, debt collector, residential properties." There was no hesitation on the other end. "Name?" "Unknown. Targeting a woman named Marin and her son." "Understood." The call ended. No questions, no doubt. My world worked fast when I told it to. I stayed on that bench long after the sun disappeared. The watch felt warm in my palm, like it still held the imprint of Emer's small hand. I didn't understand why that mattered. I didn't want it to matter. But it did. At 2 in the morning, the report arrived. The man threatening Emer's mother was named Hutchins, a parasite with a suit and a smile using legal terms sharper than knives. Everything about him screamed coward. The kind who hides behind paperwork and laws that don't protect people like Marin. He worked for a company designed to crush families, all backed by hidden owners who never got their hands dirty. I read the report twice, jaw clenched tighter each time. By sunrise, I had already made 3 calls. By noon, I had set an entire chain of events in motion, and by evening, the company that tormented Marin was sinking fast. But that wasn't enough. Not yet. I needed Hutchins himself to understand one thing. He had chosen the wrong family. I made one more call. My voice stayed calm even. A tone that always made people obey. "There will be a man visiting a building on Kirkwood Street tomorrow morning," I said. "A debt collector? Make sure he understands it's time to leave Greenville." "Permanently?" the voice asked. "No, just relocated." Strongly. The voice on the call chuckled softly. "Understood." I didn't want the man dead. Emer hadn't asked for that. He asked for the bad man to go away. So that's exactly what would happen. The next day, everything unfolded with the kind of precision only fear can create. Hutchins arrived at Marin's building. He barely made it 5 minutes before running back to his car, pale as chalk. He went home, packed 2 suitcases, and left the city before noon. He didn't even stop for gas. 3 days later, he was working in a retail store in another state, far away from Greenville, far away from Marin, far away from the boy who had dared to ask for my help. But I wasn't done. I bought her debt through a series of hidden channels. Then I erased it. Completely. Her apartment became hers. No rent, no threats, no fear. And I made sure the paperwork looked legitimate from every angle. Still, I wasn't finished. The watch needed to go back. I took it to a jeweler who never asked questions. He cleaned it, polished the scratched face, replaced the battery. On the back, he engraved small words in a careful hand. "The time she has now is only hers." That line felt right. It felt true. It felt like the closest thing to a signature I could allow myself. Late at night, while the world slept, I placed the watch in an envelope with her new documents and slid it inside her apartment door. I didn't knock. I didn't wait. I never let myself get close. But as I walked away down the quiet hallway, I felt something unusual settle inside me. Not guilt, not regret, not even pride. Something else. Something I couldn't name yet. The next morning, Marin found the envelope. I wasn't there to see it, but I could picture it clearly. Her shaking hands, her disbelief, her tears. The way she probably touched the watch like it was a miracle she didn't deserve. And I imagined Emer standing in the doorway, watching her cry for a different reason this time. I didn't know it then, but that boy would come back into my life sooner than I expected. I wasn't prepared for what he would say next. 3 months passed before I saw Emer again. During those months, Greenville went on like always, but something inside me had shifted in a way I didn't want to admit. I had done what he asked. I had fixed everything. The company that preyed on families collapsed. His mother owned her home. The debt collector had vanished from the city like smoke in the wind. Nothing tied me to that boy anymore. But every Saturday my men reported the same thing. "Sir, the boy was at the river again, just watching, keeping his distance. He never approached. He never tried to speak to me. He only sat near the same tree, quietly checking the bench where I used to sit. At first I thought it was coincidence, then routine, then something else. He was making sure I still existed, not to ask for anything, not to return anything, just to look. And although I never told my men to alert me, I always knew when he was there. There was a pull in the air I couldn't explain, a familiar presence, a small gravity. By midsummer, I had stopped going. Work demanded my attention, and my world was far from gentle. But on one hot afternoon in late August, something pushed me toward the river again. When I arrived, the bench was empty. The water was bright as metal. The heat was heavy. I sat down anyway. Minutes later, I heard the soft crunch of small footsteps through the grass. I didn't turn my head. "Sir?" a young voice said. I looked then. Emer stood exactly where he had the first time, but something in him had changed. He was still small, still thin, but he carried himself differently. His shoulders weren't tight with fear anymore. His eyes didn't tremble, and on his wrist, the blue watch shone in the sun. He lifted his arm without speaking, showing it to me as if making sure I saw it clearly. Still here, still his, still ticking, still keeping good time? I asked. A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Never stops, never slows down. That was the first time I ever saw him smile. He walked a little closer, not too close, just enough to show he wasn't afraid anymore. "How's your mama doing?" I asked. His eyes brightened instantly. "She smiles now," he said. "Real smiles, not the ones she used to make so I wouldn't worry." He took a breath, excited, hopeful. "She planted yellow flowers on our balcony. They smell like lemons when the sun hits them. She says the apartment feels like a home now." I listened silently, letting his words paint a picture in my mind. A mother finally breathing. A boy finally sleeping without fear. Flowers blooming where only stress used to live. "And you?" I asked quietly. "Are you doing well?" He nodded fast, too fast, but he meant it. "I'm good, better than good." A small wind moved across the river, lifting warm air around us. Emer looked at me with a steadiness that didn't belong to most adults, let alone a child. I stood slowly, and he tilted his head up to look at me. "Keep that watch wound," I told him. He placed his hand over it, protective and proud. "I will." Silence settled between us, a peaceful silence, not heavy, not tense. Then I heard a woman's voice calling his name from across the park. He turned. His mother stood at the entrance, shading her eyes with her hand. She looked healthier now, stronger, but her expression held worry, normal mother worry, not the despair she once carried. Before he ran to her, I spoke softly so only he could hear. "She's a good mother. You're a good son. That's rarer than you think." He froze for a moment, letting the words sink in. His eyes softened, and he nodded slightly. Then he ran to her. Marin checked him over the way mothers always do. Her eyes flicked past him toward me. She didn't know me. Not really. But something in her expression told me she understood enough. She mouthed the words across the distance. "Thank you." I gave a small nod and turned my attention back to the water. When I looked again, they were walking away. Emer grabbed her hand with a joy that made my chest tighten in a way I didn't recognize. Just before they disappeared down the trail, he looked back once, lifted his wrist, and showed me the watch one last time. I didn't move, but inside, something shifted again. The boy had changed my life once already, and I had a feeling he wasn't done yet. I thought that moment by the river would be the end of our story. He had his home, his mother had her peace. The watch was back where it belonged, and I had returned to the world I understood, the world where problems were solved with money, leverage, and fear. A world where a man like me didn't belong anywhere near a boy like Emer. But life doesn't close doors that cleanly. Weeks passed, and sometimes I caught myself thinking about him. Not constantly, Not in a way that interrupted my work. Just small moments. Quiet moments. Moments when the office grew still or the city lights flickered against the windows. I would remember the sound of his voice asking me if I could help. I would remember the strength in his tiny shoulders. I would remember how he refused to cry until he felt safe. And I would wonder how someone that young learned courage that rare. Then one cool evening, as summer folded into fall, I went back to the river at an hour I knew no one else would be there. The sky was painted orange and purple. The air smelled like wet leaves. The bench felt familiar again, like a place the world couldn't touch for a few minutes. I didn't expect anyone to come, but Emer found me anyway. I heard him running before I saw him, light footsteps. Fast, excited, different from the way he walked the first time. When I turned, he stood a few feet away, breathing hard from the effort. "Sir," he said, a breathless smile lifting the corners of his mouth. This time, he wasn't scared, not even a little. His watch glowed on his wrist in the slanting sunset. He lifted it again, not to sell it, not to trade it, but to show it proudly, like a medal he'd earned. "Still keeping time," he told me. I nodded. "I didn't expect you today." He shrugged a little, his cheeks pink from the run. "I wanted to come." He walked closer now. He wasn't afraid of the space between us anymore. He stood exactly in front of me, the way boys do when they trust someone completely. His voice softened. "I just wanted to say thank you for helping my mama and for helping me." I didn't know what to say at first. Gratitude wasn't a language I used often. It wasn't something people offered me freely, and it wasn't something I handled well. "You don't owe me anything," I finally said. He shook his head. "I know, but I still wanted to say it." He looked out at the river, his eyes full of quiet thought. "She smiles more now," he said. "She laughs sometimes. She makes pancakes on Sundays again. We talk at night, not just about bills, about good things." His voice dropped, soft and honest. I didn't think we'd ever have good things again. The words hit me harder than they should have, maybe harder than anything had in years. "You gave her that," I said. He looked up, confused. "Me?" "Your courage," I said, "your heart. A lot of people ask me for help, but not one of them ever gave me something real in return. You did." His fingers touched the watch, tracing the edges like he always did. "She said time feels different now," he whispered. "Lighter." We stood there for a long moment, listening to the river. Then I asked, "Why did you come today, Emer?" Quote, he looked away for a second, gathering his thoughts in that careful way he always did. "Because," he hesitated, "I wanted you to know that I didn't forget what you did. People forget good things. They remember bad ones forever, but I won't forget." His voice was so steady, so sure. "You gave my mama her life back," he said softly. "I wanted you to know I see that. No one in my world talked to me like that. Not with honesty, not with innocence, not with gratitude that held no fear behind it. It disarmed me, it humbled me, it stunned me." I cleared my throat and stood up. He backed up a step, respectful, still watching me with those dark eyes that seemed to understand more than a child ever should. "Take care of your mother," I told him. "She's strong. She just needed someone to take the weight off for a while." He nodded. "I will." "And take care of yourself," I added. "You're different, Emer. Not many kids your age would do what you did." He smiled again, small but bright. I just wanted her to smile. He turned when he heard his mother calling from the path. She waved, her face relaxed, her steps unhurried. She looked like a woman who finally had air in her lungs again. Before he ran to her, he looked at me one last time. "Can I still come to the river sometimes?" he asked. "Whenever you want," I said. He grinned, really grinned, and ran toward her. She gathered him into her arms, and they walked away together, talking about dinner and school and normal life. I watched them until they disappeared behind the trees. Then I looked at the river again, and for the first time in years, the water felt peaceful instead of heavy. A child had changed the course of my life with a blue plastic watch,